Hello, everyone. This morning, for me in Texas, I'm very excited this time. I have a surprise and a treat for you because I have with me a very exceptional guest, José Alberto Millán, who is a Spanish astrologer who focuses on mundane astrology. And here we have José Millán. Welcome this morning. Thank you for being with us. And can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Hi, Celsa. Hi, everyone. First, thank you for having me, for giving me this opportunity. It's been a long time. I don't speak in English, actually. So since I retired, so almost 7 years, I don't speak in public in English. So yeah, my name is José Alberto Millán. I would say more than an astrologer. I collect astrological stories. I'm a collector of astrologies. And one day somebody told me that I was a mundane astrologer. I didn't know that. I only knew that on my regular videos I do every fortnight, every second Saturday, I publish a video in which I analyze the configurations, the aspects of the moment. And very often I make comments on the political situation, geopolitics, climate change, whatever. Maybe it's because I've been working very long time in public office. I've been working 30-some years, 33 years in public office. I've been a policy maker back in time. And that's why I have this, I would say, inclination to view everything from the geostrategic vantage point. So that's it.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe your third house of your mind is ruled or has something to do with Jupiter or Neptune. So probably your way of thinking includes the whole world. You have a broader vision, right? So I don't know your chart, but what is your ascendant?
Capricorn.
Okay.
Virgo, Capricorn. And yes, you are right. I have a Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in the 9th house, with the north node of the moon.
Oh, that's interesting. And yeah, your third house with the whole signs will be Pisces, right?
Right.
Whole signs house system. So that makes your mind kind of have a broader perspective, right?
That's
So
right.
that's very interesting. So today I thought of inviting Jose because he has, I've been following those mundane perspectives that he gives online, and it is very interesting the vision that he has and the ideas that he associates with the symbols that we are studying in the present astrology. So he recently published something saying the darkest of the night or something similar, right? And I thought, well, when the night is at the darkest, the closer is the dawn. So what is interesting is that, yeah, we are, people in general feel that they are in the dark, right? In very dark times. And what I wanted to give people is a perspective of some light at the end of that darkness, and see that we are going in this process, but there is something good coming up. And it is a process that may take minimum 5 years, right? So I will share the screen here, but we will start. I think you probably agree that the gate to this new era or this new beginning, right, is the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius in December, especially considering that there is a huge eclipse near. And the other thing is that is the winter solstice for the northern hemisphere and the summer solstice in the it is the time of planting a new seed, something that is starting, right? So these are the historical milestones that we are going into from now on, going forward. And it's, as I put the Phoenix because there is a transformational period, right? Tell us a little bit about what you think about this conjunction.
Jupiter-Saturn, yeah. Well, Jupiter-Saturn are two old friends, are the two sides of the same coin. Jupiter and Saturn, they work on a team, so to speak. Jupiter is the growth principle, the exploration principle, the colonization is the conquest through knowledge, is the cognitive capacity, actually the more abstract capacity of our mind. While Saturn is the contention, is the formalization, is the solidification, and they work as a team. Jupiter explores new boundaries, new areas, new fields, and Saturn tells him, okay, that's enough. Now we have to stop and we have to build something. We have to build upon your vision. And it's a continuous process. Every Jupiter-Saturn cycle, which is 20 years, is, I would say, is the basic cycle of mundane astrology. It's the most significant in the short term. That's why we call a generation 20 years, which is the Jupiter-Saturn cycle. And they are the chronocrators. So they are the lords of time. They are the two planets which define the spirit of time, the Zeitgeist, as the Germans say, the spirit of time. Why? Because first, obviously, Saturn is Chronos, is the time, but especially because they are the two outer planets in traditional astrology. They are the planets which create the border, create this safe area between us and society. These are the social, the so-called social planets. And that's why they define basically the social basis. Every 20 years, we enter a new, I would say, a new paradigm. But what is special about this conjunction, Jupiter-Saturn in Aquarius of the 19th of December, just a few days, hours before the winter solstice, is that is the first time that happens in an air sign in the last 600 years. We have one in Libra in balance a few 40 years ago, but it's always like that. The cycles, you know that the cycles of Jupiter and Saturn are cycles of 200 years, during which they always do their conjunction in the same element. During the last 200 years, they've been in conjunction in earth signs. And normally before changing element, there is a conjunction in the new element. So that's why we had this Libra conjunction. We have the Libra conjunction, and then we have the Taurus conjunction. And now we will have the first in 600 years air conjunction, an air cycle, which starts in Aquarius. That's very important to know that it starts in Aquarius. And it starts in a very, I would say, in a very special way, because as it starts, is also forming a square with Mars and Uranus. All these few weeks during which the conjunction would be perfect, or more or less perfect, Jupiter and Uranus will be also entering into conjunction. And that will, in a way, determine the spirit of the next 2 centuries, because the first conjunction is really indicating what is the energy of the new social contract. If you remember the former first conjunction in Earth, I think it happened in 1802 or something like that. I don't remember very well. I'm very bad for
years. I read this article by Raymond Merriman, and he put the picture of the period in the first conjunction, the previous 200 years in air. The first conjunction in Libra, the same as this time, was in 1189. The second was Taurus, the same, and the third one was Aquarius in 1226, I think. And as you mentioned, that was the time of the new social contract. Tell us more about it.
Well, it's very interesting to know that, because on that year, the 12th century or the 13th century, happened the signature of the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta was, although we have now Magna Carta is a rock group, if you ask anyone, I mean, of my age, but the Magna Carta was, for the first time in history, a king was forced by the nobility and the emerging bourgeoisie, but especially the nobility, to come to terms with them and start, I could say, a more, democratic, not in the terms we understand democracy today, which is, full participation of everyone. But in the time, it was a big revolution, because in a way, these were the local lords who told the king, look, you cannot rule the country by yourself, you have to count on us. So it was the embryo of a new, much more horizontal system.
Yeah.
So we are moving now from a very vertical, hierarchical, pyramidal system, a very Capricornian, because I think that the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, the first one of this Earth cycle we are finishing now, happened in Capricorn, actually. And you have also the social contract, which came to being in the first years of the 19th century, which was very much a social contract which was top down, was the government, the state, the king, whoever, would propose to the citizens that they would be protected, they could be reasonably fed and taken care of, but on the other hand, they have to serve, they have to sell their souls and bodies to the king. Well, that was a social contract. Obviously, this social contract is still operating. We are still operating under this social contract. The new social contract, obviously, predicting is a very bad idea in general. But obviously happening as it is going to happen in Aquarius and happening in a square with Uranus and with Mars, what I can tell you is that it's going to be disruptive. It's got a lot of energy, of catalysis, of acceleration is going to happen, because Uranus is a catalyst, it's an accelerator, and Uranus squaring Saturn and in a way is ruling Saturn, because Saturn will be in Aquarius. So it's going to be, I guess, next year, especially as from the 19th of December this year, we are going to be in an extremely chaotic, extremely chaotic weather, very stormy weather, extremely stormy weather. My intuition is that we will spend an extremely hectic, turbulent year. But at the end, and this brings me to the Saturn squaring Uranus, at the end, because this is the waning square of Saturn to Uranus, and the waning square in every cycle, but especially in this cycle, the waning square is when the fastest planet, in a way, imposes its terms. It's going to be Saturn telling Uranus, look, when we started this game almost 30 years ago, I took a lot of trouble from you, Uranus, because you're a troublemaker. You forced me to do lots of things, which fair enough. I was taking lots of new things, innovation. For instance, the creation of the euro in Europe happened with the first square, with the opening square. And at the time, I was working on that, actually. I was in the European Commission. It seemed a totally crazy idea. It was like sending a ship to Mars. It seemed totally crazy. We were thinking, this is not going to work. This is too visionary. But it worked. It's working. And now, actually, what we are going to do is probably with this second square, all these changes that have been happening in the world will become systemic. For instance, you remember that actually the square of Saturn to Uranus already started in April this year, because Saturn entered Aquarius a little bit for a few weeks, but entered Aquarius, and technically it was forming a square with Uranus. And something happened on those weeks. Many things happened on those weeks, but one of the things that happened that passed unnoticed, but it was very important, maybe it's because of my financial background, was that the Chinese launched a digital currency. And that's a lot to do with Saturn in Aquarius and Uranus in Taurus. Taurus is the currency. Yeah. So they launch, as the Chinese do things, say, no, this is an experiment, don't really think we are meaning anything serious with this, but obviously they are meaning something very serious with that. And probably with this second square, what we are going to see is, among other things, extremely turbulent financial market situations, extremely turbulent. We will be witnessing the eruption of digital currencies, which you will tell me, but they already exist. We have Bitcoin, we have Ethereum, okay, but they are still, I would say, a freaky thing. Very few people are really into it. Next year, they will actually step in, but they will step in. Why? Because some big guys with a lot of financial muscle, like China or the European Union, will step in. The European Union is already thinking about a digital currency, a digital euro. So this is one of the things. You see, for instance, on these few weeks that Saturn was in Aquarius, we coined a few new expressions like social distancing. That's very much Saturn in Aquarius. That's very much. So we will see a lot of new concepts, which we have a glimpse. This year, in these few weeks in April, May, we have a glimpse. Now, as from Christmas this year, we will have the full story. We'll have the full story. And that will be very, very interesting.
I wanted to add a little bit about this first square with between Saturn and Uranus. Now, from December on 2020 and 21 and 22, because there will be about 4 squares. So the last one will be almost exact, not exact. But the thing is that we shouldn't forget the Neptune is in the middle. And so far it has been in septile in between both, right? And this is a very, we are imagining the new world, right? But it could also be frustrating for this square so far. But it will be more frustrating once the Saturn gets into Aquarius again, and Uranus will be semi-square, both of them, which is every action will be 2 steps forwards, 1 step back, and clashing the traditions and the way we wanted to do the things in the past, and the way things, you know, Uranus, the economy, innovation, and all that you're mentioning, and it will be very with a lot of obstacles in the way, right? Because Neptune is kind of putting the foot in between.
Yeah, well, it's going to be, these are going to be Neptunian obstacles, because, yeah, Neptune will be in semi-square to Saturn and to Uranus. Actually, it's been forming a semi-square with Uranus for the last 2.5 years. It's a very long semi-square.
Yeah.
And I did, back in time, I think I did a video on this semi-square because it's very interesting. Actually, I associate this semi-square, among other things, with the I would say, the not extremely transparent usage of personal data. Because you see, Uranus and Neptune. Neptune is the masses, is the masses of data, is what we call now the big data. And Uranus is the technological capacity to exploit that data. And that's why these things, you know, we've seen Facebook, we've seen YouTube or Google, all the big guys being seriously questioned by the Congress in the USA, asking them, well, what are you doing? What are you doing with our data? Here in Europe, actually, we have much tougher restrictions on personal data than in America. And
Yes,
I relate that to the semi-square with Neptune. So we will probably, what we will probably see is that, because this is part of the Neptune-Uranus cycle. When they were together, this is the millennial generation, when they were together in Capricorn, we have this perspective of a bright new world where technology, Uranus, will save the collectivity, the Neptunian mass of people. The technology was seen as the savior, the panacea. And with the first semi-square, we are seeing that it's not that, actually, that we are being cheated. We are being cheated. Our data is being used to control us, to predict our behavior, and to obviously integrate us into a gigantic consumption machine, a gigantic marketing machine. Yeah. So this is gonna exacerbate. Next year, this is going to exacerbate. And probably what we are going to see is that this is gonna become a common practice. The big data, the massive usage of personal data to predict the behavior of individuals and communities, is going to become part of the game in a way.
Yeah, the second square will be in June, and Jupiter is already entering Pisces just for a time, I think, or for the second time, not sure. Yeah, for the first time. And so Jupiter and Neptune will be playing in the picture for a while until they conjoin. Let me show the next one. So this will be the next one. And they are, no, this is June. Let's see. This one. So Jupiter will go back. This is the third Saturn-Uranus square, and Jupiter is back, but it will be back again. Let's see, Jupiter. Okay, I don't have that chart, but tell us about Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces, both rulers at the same time.
Well, it's a, I would say, a magic conjunction. If one conjunction is magic, that's the one, Jupiter, Neptune. Why? Because Jupiter is our capacity to know things, to explore things, to enlarge our cognitive capacity. It's our capacity to also formulate abstract thoughts and concepts. And Neptune is everything which cannot be expressed, is everything which is beyond our cognitive capacity. Neptune is the magic planet. Neptune is the planet which bends, solves the limits of time and space. So is actually this conjunction Jupiter-Neptune is in a way the capacity to see what cannot be seen, to see the invisible. Is this capacity to see in these Neptunian areas. So that's why it is extremely magic, because it gives us the capacity to see beyond the mist, beyond the smoke of Neptune.
Can you see the chart of the conjunction?
Yep.
Okay. I wanted to go back in history with this conjunction, because this one is a very interesting one, because they don't, the last time it was in, the conjunction was in Aquarius in December 2009. And the last time that it happened in Pisces was March 16, 1856. You know, the Civil War in America was brewing, and other things that were happening at that time was Jupiter expands, is the biggest of it. And there was a great trigonometrical survey of India officially gave the name of Mount Everest and confirmed the height. So it was interesting. It's a trivia thing, but this speaks about the biggest of the big, and how humans confirmed that it was the highest peak in the world. And another thing that started back then that is interesting is that Mundane, the first synthetic organic dye, is discovered by William Henry Perkin, a British chemist and entrepreneur, while attempting to synthesize quinine. So Mundane, also known as aniline purple and Perkins mauve, was one of the first synthetic dyes. And what's the importance of this? first of all, it was discovered serendipitously by this guy while he was attempting to create a cure for malaria. And it's also among the first chemical dyes to have been mass produced. And this eventually led to the birth of the chemical industry, which is very typical of Neptunian and Jupiterian themes. So I was thinking related to that about our, addiction epidemics and how that could be even blown out of proportions more than it is right now, right? That could be a problem with substances, for example, and also the pharmaceutical could be in the picture as well, one way or another, especially getting bigger. What do you think?
Well, yeah, that's always a possibility. It's very, very, because, the history doesn't repeat itself.
No, not exactly, just the theme.
Thanks, yeah, thanks goodness, because otherwise it would be very boring. Yeah, I think that one, the thing with astrology is that it is polymorphic. Every aspect can take several manifestations, many manifestations. And we will never even discuss in days and months, we will never get through all of them. So I can see, for instance, design drugs, drugs which go well beyond drugs for personal use, recreational use, or for purely intoxicating use, or for medical purposes also. Probably because this is a very powerful conjunction. Neptune is on its sign. Jupiter expands not only the volume, the sheer volume of things, but the knowledge we have about things. So probably considering that we are now in the time of 3D printers, design drugs and all that, probably, yeah, this is one of the consequences, that we will have totally designed drugs designed for you, specifically for one person and for a particular, very particular use. So yeah, and also probably a lot of advancement in vaccines, in all kind of pharmaceuticals. Very probably.
In the astrology of health, Jupiter represents the detoxification, and also because it's the liver, and Neptune is the immune system, the lymphatic system. So there could be themes related to those, rehabilitation, detoxification, and things like that that could come up as well. So let's go forward, if you agree, to the next step, which is the USA Pluto return that will happen exactly on February 20th, 2022. And this is an event that has already started, right? And it's a very powerful, as we can see. I mean, in a personal life, people who are in the 80s right now, that were born early in the 30s, are going through experiences, personal experiences that are death and rebirth, I talk about this because my mother had her Pluto opposition, because that was in Cancer back then. And it's she literally was to the edge of death and came back. So this is to illustrate how powerful Pluto return may be for a country. What are your ideas about this?
Well, we are seeing it. As you said, there's very little we can say because we are seeing it every day on the television, the media. I think that obviously the Saturn return, the Pluto return, as you very rightly said, has already started. Because, I mean, for instance, Richard Turner considers an orb of 10 degrees, which may seem a little bit big, but I think it's applicable here.
Yes.
It coincides very much with, for instance, Trump came to power and rise to power and all that. A Pluto return is an experience a person cannot live. So it's an experience that only a country can live. And obviously, you don't have to be a genius of astrology. It's a moment of collapse, death, fall, and rebirth in a way. But in the case of the States, it's very interesting because if you see on this year, the year 22, there's going to be the Pluto return plus the Saturn will be over the moon of the United States in Aquarius. Mm-hmm. So, and it will be practically the whole year, will be practically from March until the end of the year, will be, you know, cycling around the USA moon. And that is very, very interesting because on top of that, on March 2022, you will have Venus and Mars also in conjunction with Pluto over the USA Pluto. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's clear that they are entering a period of death, which is going to be extremely complicated in 2022 because Saturn transiting over the over their moon. That means that this image the Americans have of themselves as being a community, you see, it's a country which a very strong sense of community. Mm-hmm. Is going to be questioned. It's going to be put at stake because Saturn is the old professor who comes to you and says, "Okay, let's sit an exam. Let's sit an exam." Hmm? Mm-hmm. So.
If you like, I can find the, let me see, the chart for the USA. No. Well, I don't have it handy, so let's leave it at that. Yeah, it's going to be, and a year later, Pluto enters, let's see, Pluto enters Aquarius in 2023 already for a few weeks, but it's already significant because it's changing the game completely, right? It's let's see, Pluto and Aquarius. Can you see the chart there?
Yeah. Well, Pluto in Aquarius is going to be quite, as you said, quite a change. And if you see, a lot of American revolutions started with Pluto in Aquarius. Mm-hmm. The movement of independence from Spain and Portugal and all the rest, but especially from Spain. This entry of Pluto in Aquarius is probably going to translate into a very, very powerful movement of liberation of the collective, which is Aquarius, the society at large, from the oppression of power.
Mhm.
And if you see, that's very much in line with what happened in America at the time, was in a way getting rid of the Spanish political rule at the time. So it's going to be very much a revolutionary process, a
Yeah.
process of getting rid of the old Capricornian structures.
Yeah, certainly. And one of the significant things is that it is squaring the nodal axis. And not only that, we already have Saturn entering Pisces and started to play. It's far, but they will play together for a long time before Saturn and Neptune meet at 0 Aries, which is very significant. I mean, they go all the way together in Pisces, playing back and forth, and they don't meet until they go to Aries. So this is a chart that is powerful, I guess. South Node and Scorpio of transformation and, you know, of the past, transformation of the structures of the past, and Pluto digging into the corruption and all the you know, the bad things. Aquarian, which is social, internet, networking, and all those themes will be like when Pluto was in Capricorn, taking out all the corruption out. That will be the same process in Aquarius. It will go back into Capricorn for just a little bit and come back in 2024. So definitely to stay for a long time there. So the revolution certainly will be very powerful.
Yeah, and I think that actually what Pluto in Aquarius will translate into is new social power structures, more than structure forms, networks, because Aquarius is not about structures, it's about networks. It's about very subtle, very dynamic, very open structures, not non-hierarchical. There's no top-down. Aquarius is much more, you know, flat organizations. So that will be probably also remember that the transit of Pluto in Aquarius saw the birth of the first democratic country on earth, which is the United States, with, I mean, at the time was a big breakthrough. And the French Revolution, an incredible amount of inventions on the, I mean, Tesla, all the electricity inventions, technology. So it's probably going to be a period where the leadership is going to be in the hands of innovators, scientists or politicians with a scientist mindset in a way. And obviously, it will be also this cleaning process, as every time that Pluto transits, we are going to see the dark side of technology. We are going to see the dark side of the big data, the fake news, the social networks, all these things we are discussing today about how the social networks isolate you instead of putting you in communication with other views. They put you in communication with people who think the same as you. So you have the impression that everybody thinks like you. And then we have what we are seeing now, all this extreme radicalization and all the all these groups which are spreading fake news and rumors and things like that. All this is going to be under very serious scrutiny with Pluto in Aquarius, very probably.
Another subject that I think will be under scrutiny is science and experimentation and all scientific processes and science in general will be like overturn and die and come back into another form, right? What do you think about the scientific rebirth?
Well, yeah, because if you see, our science is still following 19th century standards for, you know, development, peer exam and all these kind of things. So I think science is going to especially take into consideration that Pluto and Uranus will be doing a trine between 2026 and 2028. And this is an extremely powerful configuration, because Pluto will be in trine with its ruler in Aquarius. So this period is going to be an incredible breakthrough in science, the way we do science. I think one of the likely breakthroughs is quantum computing, quantum computing. And I would say one of the things that come back to my mind every now and then, considering this Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini in trine, is the incorporation of artificial intelligence once and for all, as I would say, not a peer of human intelligence, but a complement, a very much needed and used complement. Probably artificial intelligence, quantum computing, all these things together are gonna stabilize, are gonna synthesize into a common corpse, a common body of science, and probably they are going to enter the social and political scene very, very strongly.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting, the future, right? Well, the next step is the Saturn-Neptune dance in Pisces, and the final conjunction in Zero, Aries. And my notes, I took some notes about the symbols, dissolution of boundaries, but also border conflicts and disputes of territories. And I'm going to refer to history about that. But also, they give the possibility to give form to the world that we imagine, for example. It could also be regulation of substances and control of illnesses. Also systematic dealing with addictions, and for personal life, it could be realizing your dream, you know, who knows. And I found that I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, it's about a 36-year cycle. Is that right? Yeah. And the last time they meet was in between 88 and 90, 1988 and 90 in Capricorn. But
Sagittarius Capricorn, in the border between Sagittarius and Capricorn. Yeah, 29 Sagittarius and 0 Capricorn. Yeah.
Exactly. And so next time it will be March 23rd in 2023. Yeah. And I looked up the history, and I found something interesting, because usually for at least the last 2 times that I explored, it was the conjunction happened, even though they played a little bit in Pisces, the conjunction took place in Aquarius, and that was in April of 1847, and their orb was about 10 degrees apart in Pisces. The conjunction happened prior to them being in together in Pisces. But the previous time that they met in Aries was March 1703 at 11 degrees Aries. But let me just talk a little bit about Saturn and playing together in Pisces in 1846-47. The conjunction was in April of 46 in Aquarius, as I said. But at that time, here in America, there was you know, Texas was part of Mexico, and there were about 300,000 immigrants settling in Texas, you know, American people in Texas. And what happened with the government of the President Santa Anna, Antonio, I think, yeah, Antonio de Santa Anna, he started putting restrictions on the population of Texas that the Texans, of course, didn't like. So they rebelled, and they declared independence. That was in 1836. That's previous to that. But then they started fighting over the territory because of economy, as usual in wars, right? And the United States ended up annexing the Republic of Texas in 1845. But of course, Mexico was not happy because it was their territory. And so they started this conflict that ended American troops clashing in April 46 with Mexican troops. And then Santa Anna was defeated in April 1847. And well, we know the story. USA ended up buying the territory from Mexico because Mexico was defeated in the war, so they had to make a deal, and that's the story about border conflict, right? Mm-hmm. And as you said, it might not show up as exactly the same, but definitely there are, you know, Neptune is the solution and merging everything with everything, and Saturn is, no, here are the boundaries.
Yeah, well, I think that Neptune in Aries, to me, it reminds me a little bit of Crusaders. Is the Templars, the Crusaders, the fighters for a vision. Is a vision, a fight for universal compassion in a way. Obviously, one of the readings of this is what you say, is Neptune is solving, is blurring borders. So then again, very probably we will see, and it's very interesting. You mentioned the Mexican American War and the loss of Texas and all that, because that was actually a case of borders which were kind of foggy, were moving in a way, and then Saturn came and fixed them. They create new borders, no? And I wonder to what extent in the future they may reverse the situation. The Hispanic population in the southern states of America will be in a way, wanting to have some kind of autonomy or some kind of identity. I mean, America, the United States, is in a very, very fluid situation. It's an extremely fluid situation. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. I mean, and when I say anything, I mean anything, going down to civil war. Not civil war like the ones we had in Spain, in which almost half of the population was killed, but very, very tough civil unrest and division and fighting and fighting. We will see that in the years to come. So in this context, anything can happen.
It's already set up by this polarity, right? The country is divided in two bands and two parties that are fighting like crazy, and it is already set up for this fight, brothers against brothers, right? So it's possible, especially with Pluto coming to transform and to give a new life, let's say. Of course, killing first and then giving new life. It is possible, right? So I would say, to wrap up this overview of the next 5-6 years, we have a very deep transformation, right? And we are actors in this transformation. We are agents of transforming not only our own lives, but also we have a social responsibility to take in order to make this new world happen. What do you think?
Well, actually, what is going on now, this extreme polarization, reflects our own internal polarization. Is the typical Plutonian polarization between life and death, light and darkness. And the way Pluto solves this conflict is dramatic. Plutonian ways are dramatic. We know that very well. What Plutonian does is Pluto puts them together and makes them stay together, life and death. Pluto's message is there is no life without death. The division between life and death is artificial. It's a mental division. It's a division of your mind. So, and that's why Plutonian transits are so transformative, because they take the two polarities and they make them confront, fuse. And that obviously creates an enormous amount of dissipation, dissipates an enormous amount of energy. And on this dissipation of energy, the structures die and change. But obviously the Plutonian processes are deadly, It's always deadly. Death is part of the game when Pluto is transiting. So probably in the States, it's not only in the States, it's happening in all countries. You go to Mexico and you are pro-AMLO or anti-AMLO. You go to Argentina and you are pro-Kirchner or anti-Kirchner. You go to Spain, I don't tell you, you are red or you are blue. And that's it. So, and this is gonna not explode, but it's gonna implode. In a way, it's gonna fuse, and that fusion will dissipate a lot of energy and obviously will create a lot of havoc, will break havoc, will cause destruction, will cause collapse. I mean, it's crystal clear for me. And when you see the States, you see, well, it's coming. It's coming, it's clearly coming, and especially they will have also Saturn over the moon, that fatidic 2022 year, and Saturn is going to be telling them, you are no longer a community. You thought you were a community, but you are no longer a community now. this Saturn will make them face the facts, because that's what Saturn does. Puts you the facts in front of you. So anything can happen. I can see very easily the states in the coast saying, look, we go in our own independent republic, and we leave the central states, which vote conservative or Republican, to keep on in their game. That could happen. That could happen. Very easy.
Yeah, we saw this process started with the conjunction of Saturn and Pluto. And in evolutionary astrology, for example, they talk about Pluto being the soul, which is what you said. The soul is something eternal. It's one thing. It's the recycling of life. Is coming to the black hole and being born again. You know, the universe comes from the black hole and then it goes back to the black hole. That's what Pluto talks about, as you said. And Saturn is the time. So the time does not exist. The time is always present, right? So we are in this process trying to reconcile the past and leaving things behind in order to get the new life. So what I encourage people is to look at the future with hopeful eyes, and that we need to leave our probably our past life behind. Many people are attached to the past in the way that they want to go back to the normal, you know. There's no normal anymore.
There's no way back. There's no way back.
There's no way back.
No, because I mean, you have a timeline, and evolution is something which happens only in one direction. So yeah, I mean, it's very Cancerian, it's very lunar to want to get back to the old, you see that all over the place. People who are against the social distancing, the mask, the vaccines, this and that. Actually, when you listen to them, all they say is, I want to get back to the situation in 2019. I say, well, but that's not going to happen.
Never going to happen again.
No. We are going to a very, very different world. And with Jupiter and Saturn entering Aquarius, the interest of the collective will rule out the personal individual interest, because it's Aquarius Lion. So it's going to be a much more Aquarian approach. We are going to see a lot of social approaches coming up, like the basic rent, basic income, and all that. But we will also have to pay a very high price in terms of personal data, not personal freedom, but yes, we will be observed, we will be followed. We will have to comply to a lot of rules and norms, social rules and norms, like the social distancing, wearing masks, having apps that can locate you in every moment. We will be living that. We will be living that. And a few years ago, that was science fiction, but now is happening. This is 2021 and beyond. This is what expects us.
And many of us will not like it, but there is going to be the new normal, unfortunately, and it unavoidable, right?
Yeah, you have all the time people who live in the past. I remember when the Americans landed in the moon. I was already 8 years old. And the old people, the old men in my village and the old women in my village, they were saying, no, that's not true. They made it up. You cannot get to the moon. You cannot put a man in the moon. And they died thinking that it was a setup. So, well, okay, just leave them with that.
Very interesting. So to end, I wanted to thank you so much. here you have the information for José Millán. He does personal astrology also, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, so and also I wanted to remind you of my contact information, and these are some of the references that I used, and I wanted to thank you so much to give us just this peek into the future, this perspective of hope that things are going to change, right? And that we are actors in this, even though definitely it will be painful for many of us, especially the older people, right, who will need to adapt to such innovative things, you know. So thank you so much. Do you want to say anything to say goodbye?
Well, no, I'm happy to have had the opportunity to address the English speaking astrology amateurs, and it's my first. I hope it's not going to be my last. And well, that's all. I would say that let's look at the bright side of life.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for these words of hope.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Goodbye.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye.